Ready? Are we on? Okay, great.
We crashed right after.
All right. Yehuda says I'm once. I got to let's do the sponsors. Sponsors for the Daf Yomi of the week. Rabbi Aaron and Evelyn Kislasi, in honor of the engagement of their daughter Ilana to Joey Brescher of Los Angeles. Mazel Tov. Daf Yomi for the week is sponsored by Yehuda Greenwood, B'tzchus Refuah Shlema for Mercedes Bas Miriam, and Daf Yomi for the week is sponsored by the Kahal Yereim Daf Yomi crew, Li'ilui Nishmas Bela Yentel Bas Elchanan. We are at the first new Mishnah on Chaf Aleph Amid Aleph, middle of the page. Hakosev Ksuvas Ka'aka, somebody who gets a tattoo. Kosav Velo Ka'aka, Ka'aka Velo Kasav Eno Chayiv. If the person gets the process of the tattoo is that the skin gets punctured and then the ink gets injected subdermally.
You didn't only get tattooed.
That's correct. That's what we're just saying, right? You get a lo saseh and you get Makkos for it. So if he gets the punctures and doesn't get the ink, or he gets the ink but doesn't get the punctures, that is not going to cause. That's not the lo saseh.
Why don't you still get damage in your body even with the puncture? Because you can still put a bit of a small drop of ink.
Remember, puncturing going to get acupuncture is not usher, right? So it's only if you put some dye in it afterwards that's where the usher is.
It's not the blood; it's just the dye.
That's right. Yeah.
Or the dye. Yeah.
Right. Eino chayav ad sheyichtov v'yikak'ah biyado. But rather, you're only liable once, which is bidio, right? Then you're only liable once. You do the puncturing and then you insert the ink, or with kahol, or with a blue ink, or bechol davar shehu roshem, or anything that leaves the mark, right? You can use. You're going to see that ashes or things like that. They would, different types of dyes that they use. Rabbi Shimon Yehuda, Mishum Rabbi Shimon Amar, Rabbi Shimon Yehuda, in the name of Rabbi Shimon, you say eno chayav ad sheyichtov shem. Yichtov Shem Es Hashem. You're not liable until you write the name there. You usually think of Hashem's name. We're going to see what we're talking about. Shneimers pasuk says, "Uksuvas Ka'aka lo yitnu bachem." You're not allowed to put a tattoo on you. Ani Hashem, because I am Hashem. And sounds like, what tattoo can't you write? You can't write. You can't write the tattoo. Can't say I am Hashem. Right, if you write Hashem's name on you, but we'll see what the Gemara, how the Gemara reads it. So the Gemara, Amalei Rav Acha Braid the Rav Rav Ashi. So Rav Acha, the son of Rav, says to Rav Ashi, Adich Tov Ani Hashem Mamash. Right, the way, as we said, the way it sounds in the pasuk is, you're not allowed to get a tattoo that says I am Hashem. Right, then that's where the Yisra is. Amar Lei said to him, Lo, nope, that's not true. Kidetani Bar Kapara, it's like Bar Kapara says, Eino Chayav Ad Sheyichtov Shem Avodas Kachafim. You're not liable unless you write the name of an idol, right? It's not just regular drawing a smiley face tattoo. It's writing the name of Avodas Kachavim on your tattoo. That is the problem. Shneimers book says, Uksoves Kaka Lo Titnu Bachem Ani Hashem, because why can't you get a tattoo? Because I am Hashem, Ani Hashem V'lo Acher. There are no other Hashems. So if you write the name of another deity, right, then that would be a problem. Amar Rav Malchia, Amar Rav Ada Bar Ava. Rav Malchia said the name of Rav Ada Bar Ava. Asr lo li adam shitin efer makla al gabe makaso. Person can't put this type of ash, this makla ash, on top of his wound, right? So he's got a cut. Right, so he's going to put this healing type of ash on. Problem is that you've got a wound, and then you put this ash in it, because that appears to be like a tattoo. So it sounds like that I don't know the way I'm understanding it. I have to take a look inside to see how we paskin. But the tattoo, right? This tattoo, it says it's a seams and appears like, means it doesn't sound like it's the Doraisa. It's not the Isser Doraisa here. It's only Derabanan. It seems. Amar Rav Nachman Braid Rav Ika. Rav Nachman Rav Ika says, Shipud Shefachos Vegumos. So he says that the Rav Ika says you can remember that there's a Rav Malchia and there's a Rav Malchio. They have very similar names, and each of them had 3 teachings. So you can remember which of the 3 teachings by remembering that when it comes to the shipud, which is the case of the spit, and that is where we said that if you are roasting meat on Yom Tov, so when you remove the meat from the spit, so the spit is now dirty, it's muktzah, right? So can you move it out? So Shmuel says muktzah, you can't touch it anymore. We call it muktzah machmas mius.
How would you muktzah if you're allowed to cook on Yom Tov?
While it's cooking, while it's cooking, you can. Once it's done cooking, don't touch it. It's muktzah, right? But that's where we say that it is Rav Malkio chimes in and he says, nope, it's okay. Muktzah machmas mius, you can push it out of the way. in a kalach or yad, in a non-normal way, if you need that space, that location, right? So we have that kind of a way. If you need to be able to get something that is garbage off your table or whatever, you can, right? You can push it off your table, kalach or yad, in sort of a backhanded kind of a way. The second halacha is the halacha of shvachos, that we have a teaching that a woman who gets married to a husband, so they have kind of a deal. He has responsibilities to take care of her. She has responsibilities to take care of him, and her responsibilities include taking care of the household. What if she's a wealthy person and she has maidservants? And so the maids are taking care of everything. So the Rabbi Eliezer says, even though she might have plenty of maids, she has to do some work around the house, because otherwise she's going to get lazy and it's not good for her mentally. So therefore we insist that she does some things regardless. And that Rabbi Malkio says the halacha is like Rabbi Eliezer. And the third thing is gumos, that if, let's say, you have a girl who gets to be 12 years old, so she has to, in order for her to be chayav in mitzvahs, to be able to know that she has reached mature age, she needs 2 hairs. What if the 2 hairs are not visible, but the pores are visible, meaning it's indicated she had the hair, but they fell out? So in that circumstance, is that considered to be a siman of godless, a siman that she's old enough? So that Rav Malkio says, yes, it is. And all 3 of those are the opinions of Rav Malkio. However,
there'll be a mark of where the hair was, right?
Correct, exactly. Now, on the other hand, blurios, that non-Jews used to have a special hairstyle that they would leave some kind of hair long in order to recognize their idolatry. They cut it a certain way. And so if you're a
Mohawk or Mohawk?
I don't know whether it was like a mohawk type of a hair or whether it's like a Jedi kind of a thing in the back. I don't know, whatever it was. But they have any kind of special hair kind of thing. So you were not supposed to, as a Jew, if you're the Jewish barber, you're not supposed to make it nice like that, right? Because then you're helping him worship as avodah zarah. So that glorious, you have to be able to leave a space of 3 finger breadths from where the hair.
Has nothing to do with the.
Right, not the payas thing, like that was yesterday, yeah. So we didn't have to worry about that. That's not, this is his special glorious. We're going to see it when we get to Meseches Avodah Zarah, and then, so that's coming up soon. And Efer Mikla, that's the case of the ashes that we just mentioned, where you can't have a cut and put the special ashes on these ashes on it in order to be, because it looks like a tattoo. And Gvina, and when it comes to cheese, which is the place of Onaiki, where the Gemara talks about they would put lard on the outside of their cheese, right, on the covering of the cheese. And he said that because of that, even though cheese, generally speaking, might be kosher, because what else is it? Because the halacha is
it's expired milk.
Yes, and it would not congeal unless it was from a kosher animal, right? If the milk came from a non-kosher animal, it wouldn't be able to turn into cheese. All cheese must be able to congeal. It must come from a kosher animal.
Whether it's goat or cow, right?
Rabbi, oh my gosh, the Rosh Kollel told me that butter can only be churned.
Correct. Yes.
From Rav Shiner,
right?
From a kosher animal.
Yes.
That's why people even have butter, even though they're chol Yisrael.
That's it. So that's why they don't have to wear chol Yisrael when it comes to cheeses or the rennet. Well, the rennet is what makes it stiff. But even with the rennet, I guess without if it's not kosher, right, then it's not gonna stiffen it. So therefore, all cheese should be kosher. You don't have to worry about it. The answer is, he said, yeah, but they coat their cheese with pig fat, so in order to make it look shiny for the store, right? So you can't eat their cheese. So that was Rav Malkiah. So therefore, that's how you can remember. These are the halachos that Rav Malkiah said, and these are the halachos that Rav Malkiah said. Rav Papa says, Masnisin umasnisa Rav Malkiah. He says that if the teaching was related to a Mishnah, so then it's Rav Malkiah. If it was related to a statement from a Moroim, then it's Rav Malkiah, which doesn't really make that much difference, except for the one that has to do with the gumos, which the so he says that's the one by the hairs and by the what do you call it, the shifchos. He says those are Rav Malkiah instead of Rav Malkiah, and you have to flip a couple of them around. So now he says the way that you can remember it, v'simanech, the way you can remember which ones are which is masnisa malchasa. So he says that the Mishnah are Malchasa, where Malkiya's name sounds like Malchasa, the king with the Malchasa, and Malkiyo is right, exactly. So therefore, it sounds right. It sounds a good way to remember it. My Beinaihu. What's the difference between the two opinions? It can be Beinaihu Shvachos, the case of the woman who has the maid servants coming in. So according to one says that is Rav Malkiya's opinion. The other says it's Rav Malkiyo's opinion. Rav Bibi Bar Abaye Kapid. Pirsh Arivda Dekus Lisa. So, Rav Bibi Bar Abaye was worried about even putting the ash on a place where they had some bloodletting, right? If a person had bloodletting, now there's no design there. It's just like one prick, right? Nevertheless, he was careful. He wouldn't even put like the healing lotion on that because it would leave a mark, and that he already said was something to be worried about. He didn't want any permanent marks as a tattoo. Ravashi Amar Kol Makom Sheyesh Shamaka Makasom Mochiacholav. Ravashi says you don't have to worry about that. Anytime you see that somebody's got a wound or a blemish, so everybody's going to understand you didn't put the ashes there in order to create a tattoo. You put it there for medicinal purposes, so you don't have to worry about that. So that's how Ravashi ends it.
How did they do tattoos back in the day? Because today they use a gun that like shoots like 1,000,000 miles an hour, right, with a needle. Mm-hmm. Back then, that's what they did.
They must have poked the holes in, right?
Yeah.
And then they put the ink on top until it went underneath the skin.
So what happens with a convert if before conversion?
I know somebody like that, right? And so the answer is nothing.
Yeah. It's okay.
Yep. I mean,
When you're Jewish, not from
you don't have to get it taken off. Yeah, same thing. If you already had your tattoo from before, and then you become a Baal Tshuva, so there's no obligation to remove your tattoo. The prohibition is you cannot get a tattoo. Mm-hmm. Once you already have the tattoo, there's no prohibition in having it. Mm-hmm. Right? Says the next Mishnah. Nazir shahaya sholte yayin kol hayom. Let's say you have a Nazir and he's drinking wine all day long. Eno chayav el achas. He's only liable to one set of lashes, right? Because he only got warned one time. So his whole crime is just one crime. Amru lo al tishta. If they tell him the whole time, don't drink, right? Somebody's over there, keep telling him. Vu shows and he keeps drinking. Chayav al kol achas v'achas. Now he's liable for every single one he drank because he got told over and over again he's violating it several times. Let's say he keeps going and becoming tameh to a dead body all day long. Only one. Amrullah, they say to him, al tatame. They tell him over and over, don't become tameh. The who mitame, and he does it anyway. He's going to be liable for every single one.
But he wants to become tameh once in a day. You can't really become tameh again.
Yes, you can.
I thought you can't.
Because it's not, this is the Isser is coming in contact with the Tumah, and so therefore even a Kohen, let's say a Kohen is Tameh, he never goes and gets sprinkled with the ashes of the Paradum, he's Tameh mace, doesn't matter, he's still not allowed to come in contact with a mace.
Okay, so it's coming in contact.
Exactly,
okay.
Correct, yes.
It could be different levels of Tuma.
So once you're already an Avatuma, theoretically it doesn't go away, right? But the point is, nevertheless, the prohibition is still to come in contact with the mace. So a Nazir still, even though he's Tameh already, the Isser isn't to become Tameh, the Isser is to come in contact with the mace. So let's say he was cutting his hair all day long. So then he gets a full haircut. It's one losase. Amrullah al tegalech. They tell him the whole time, don't cut your hair. And he keeps cutting his hair. So then he's going to be liable for every time he cuts a certain amount, 2 hairs or so. Let's say he was wearing shatnez, wearing his shatnez suit. Kol hayom, he's wearing the same shatnez suit all day long. Eno chayav ela achas, and then they say to him, "Don't wear that suit. It's shatnez." He's only chayav once. However, amru lo al tilbash al tilbash. They tell him the whole time, "You can't wear that. You can't wear that." Vehu poshet velovesh, and he takes it off and puts it back on. Then chayav al kol achas v'achas. Then he's liable. Why does he have to take it off, put it back on? Lav shein bo ma'aseh, right? He needs an action. He needs to have some kind of action in order to be liable. Chaf aleph amid beis yesh. Choresh telem achas. Now we get like the mental gymnastics. Sometimes somebody could just plow one row. V'chayv alav mishum shmona lavin, and he's going to violate 8 prohibitions in the one shot. Here's what he does: hachoresh b'shor v'chamor. He uses an ox and a donkey together while he's plowing. That's your kilayim. V'hem mukdashin, and the ox and the donkey are hektish, right? They're bechorim. They're going to be bechorim, we're going to see. And so therefore, since they are firstborns, right? Can't use something that's hektish. That's a prohibition. V'kilayim b'kerem, and the vineyard that he's plowing in has wheat and grapes in the same vineyard, and so therefore he's doing that too. Ubashvias, it's during the Shemitah year. V'yom tov, and he's doing it on Yom Tov. V'kohen, and not only that, but he's a Kohen, v'nazir, and he is a nazir, v'beis hatuma, in the graveyard. Okay, so he's doing all of these items.
Maybe a nazir and a Kohen. Right, that makes sense. Okay.
Right. So, so he's going to be. That's his 8. So Chanina ben Chachnoi Omer. Chanina ben Chachnoi says, "Af halovish kilayim." You could be wearing shatnez at the same time. So then we can throw in another one. Amrulo. They said, "Einu Hashem." That's not the same thing because one is through the plowing. And one is wearing the garment while you're plowing. That's not like this. You could also say, and he could also be, eating non-kosher while he's doing. That's a separate act. It's not the same thing. So Amar Lehem, so he says, Afa Nazir lo hu Hashem. He says, well, also then the Nazir is not part of the plowing. The Nazir, okay, their point is he's going into the graveyard, right, while he's plowing. His point is, but the plowing isn't the same affair. The act of plowing isn't where the act of plowing in the vineyard is prohibited. During Shemitah, that's an extra prohibition. On Kilayim, which is with the ox, and that is all because of the plowing. The Nazir is because of something else. So you can see the two different perspectives. Says the Gemara. Afilu machnis umotzi beis yad unkali shelo. Let's read that. Whether we have the parentheses or not, but according to one Girsa, Rav Bibi Amar Rav Bibi says Rav Yosef that does the Mishnah mean that he has to take the garment off completely, or even if he just puts his arm in his sleeve over and over, right? He doesn't have to once you put your arm in your sleeve, so you're wearing it, you're not wearing it, you're not wearing it, you're not wearing it. So that would be enough. Machli Rav Acha Breder Rav Ika Ilavi V'Afuke. So Rav Acha, the son of Rav Ika, showed everybody what it was like to just put it on and take it off to be able to demonstrate what would be the amount that you needed to do in order to be liable. Now I can't show you because I didn't see, so I don't know what he showed them, but whatever it was, he showed them what it would be. Rav Ashi says, Afilu Losha Ela Kedei Lifshot V'Lul Bosh Chayev. The amount of time for you to have this garment on and be chayev for violating shatnez is an instance, right? The amount of time to put it on and take it off is enough to be violating the halachos of shatnez, which means that becomes kind of scary because when people try on clothes in the store, right? If you know that it's shatnez, you can't try it on in the store.
When you try it on, not only shatnez, until after the fact.
Right, so you have to have at least a reasonable.
So even if he's not walking,
you don't have to walk around or anything. Just take it on, put it off, right? Yesh chorish telem. Now let's get into this plowing case. Amar Rav Yanai. Rav Yanai says, Bechabura nimnu vegamru. In the group, we all gathered together and we voted and we decided hachofe bekilayim, that if somebody takes dirt and he covers up the wheat and the grape seeds, which is the prohibition of kilayim in the planting in the mixed crops in the field. So if you cover it up with the dirt, kilayim loka, that's enough. You don't have to push it into the dirt, like literally sew it in to push it into the dirt. Just take loose dirt, cover the seeds with it. That's already enough of a prohibition. You get Makkos, that's violation of on a Doraisa level. Amr lehen Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, Lav Mishnah Senu Hizu. Why do you have to tell me that? It's a Mishnah. Our Mishnah says that because Yesh Chorish Telem Echad, that you can be plowing this one row, v'chayav alav mishum shmon alav, and you're violation of 8 different prohibitions. Hachorish b'shor b'chamor v'hein mukdashin. We said that he's plowing with the ox and the donkey, and they're sanctified. V'kilayim b'kerem, and while you're plowing, it is a violation of somehow you're planting these seeds in the vineyard. So hachorish. How could you be plowing and be in violation for planting? Plowing and planting are not the same thing. So how do you wind up doing that? So he says, Lav de michsi behadei de azil. Isn't it what he's doing is as he's plowing, the soil is getting turned over, and the soil that's getting turned over is covering the seeds. And that's how he's planting it. So you guys didn't need to figure this out and vote and decide that covering the seeds, our Mishnah says that just covering the seeds is enough. So Amarle, so they said to him, Rabbi Yanai said to Rabbi Yochanan, Ilav de diloy loch chaspa mi mishkachas marganisa tusa. If I hadn't drawn out the piece of pottery, lifted up a piece of pottery, you wouldn't have found the beautiful pearl underneath. Meaning, Once we pointed it out, then you look at the Mishnah and you see that it's in the Mishnah. Taka, you're right. It is in the Mishnah, but, right, we pointed it out and then you discovered that, yes, the Mishnah supports that. Amar le Reish Lakish Rabbi Yochanan. Reish Lakish said to Rabbi Yochanan, Ilam de kilsach gavra rabba. If Rabbi Yanai, the great man, hadn't complimented you on finding that beautiful piece of Torah, so then Havamina, I wouldn't have thought that's what the Mishnah is saying. I wouldn't have thought the Mishnah agrees with you. Why? Because Masnisin Mani, I would have thought the Mishnah, who's the Mishnah's opinion? It's Rabbi Akiva. It's Rabbi Akiva's opinion, Da'amar Hamakayim B'Kilayim Loka, that walking through the field that has wheat and grapes growing in it is going to be enough to be in violation of kilayim. Even though you didn't actually do anything to the field, just walking through it is enough to be in violation because you're not uprooting it. You're walking past it without uprooting it. So, my Rabbi Akiva, where do you see Rabbi Akiva hold that way? Detanya, we're in a brisa. Hamenachesh v'hamechape b'kilayim loka. If somebody digs up and then covers the dirt, covers the seeds in kilayim, you get lashes. Rabbi Akiva Omer af hamekayim, even just leaving it without destroying it. My time with Rabbi Akiva. What is the source for Rabbi Akiva's ruling? Ditanya is going in a brisa. Sadcha lo sizra kilayim. The pasuk says you're not allowed to plant your field as kilayim. I'm sorry, Menakesh, I said that they were covering up. That's not what it is, because otherwise we would have learned it from this Mishnah. Menakesh is pulling weeds out. If you pull out weeds, or Mechape is covering the seeds with dirt. So if you're pulling weeds out, so then that is going to be, according to the first opinion, that's going to be establishing the kilayim. Rabbi Akiva says, no, just walking through the field without pulling the stuff up, then you're a violation. Why? Because the brisa says, Sadcha lo sizra kilayim, you're not allowed to plant your field to be a mixture of wheat and grapes, of grain and grapes. Ainli ella zoreya, so it means planting is the prohibition. Mekayim minayin. How do I know that the prohibition even applies if I walk through and I don't uproot it? Talmud Lomar, the pasuk says, kilayim sadcha.
To plant grain and grapes together.
Kilayim in your field. Sorry?
Planting grains and grapes in your field, like similar to shatnez.
That's similar to shatnez, correct. We're using the same prohibition as the prohibition in the Torah. It gives us really three types of shatnez, right? Clothing, wool, and linen, plowing with an ox and a donkey, and growing in a field grapes and grain.
So this says your field. If you're walking through your friend's field, you're not chayiv.
That's a good question. What does that mean? Does it have to be your field? It's a good question. I don't think you're in violation if you walk through your friend's field. I don't know if you have the responsibility to uproot.
Well, it would be the same as trying a suit. That shatnez is not yours, but you're trying it.
Yes, but that is the same thing as you're wearing it. Let's say it would be sort of the same thing. Let's say I plant it. The answer is I'm not sure.
Right.
It's a good question.
Because it says
I'm not convinced.
Your field.
Right. I'm not convinced. But I hear where you're coming from. Let's see if anybody says pure. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know if it has to be your field or not. Amar le Ula le Rav Nachman. Ula says to Rav Nachman, "V'lilki nami mishum zoreya b'yom tov." Okay, so we have this list of 8 things. So we had this list of 8. So now, if what you're suggesting that happened now is we listed the 8 things. One of them was plowing in the field on Yom Tov. That was a violation of Yom Tov. You're going to get Makkos for that. Well, if now what you're suggesting is we've covered the dirt over the seeds, and that's how you became in violation of the kilayim, then why are you not also in violation of planting seeds on Yom Tov? And that would be the 9th Avera, right? Planting also is prohibited on Yom Tov. So the Amar Le, so he says, Tana v'shir. You're right. There's extra Averos here, right? Just said there are 8, but there could be 9, there could be 10.
Really plowing and
2 different Averos, right? So
it's under the same category in
they're not, right? Of the 39 Makkos, planting and plowing are 2 separate ones.
Yeah. I think one comes before, plowing comes before...
Plowing comes before planting, that's right. Right? Amar Le, so he said, Tana, Katani Shmona, the Mishnah says literally there's 8. right? Ve'atamar ton of a shire, and you're saying what? He was just joking about the number. Why did he say 8? He says there's a lot of isurim, and then you could say, okay, so he picked 8, he picked 9, whatever it is, but he literally said 8. There's a reason why he says 8 because it's not 9. So Amar Rava. So Rava says, Yesh chiluk melachos b'Shabbos, be'ein chiluk melachos b'Yom Tov. You know what the difference is? When it comes to Shabbos, if you violate a number of different melachos on Shabbos, you're going to be chayav for each and every individual one, right? Because we said lo savaru eish b'chol mosh v'osechem, right? You're not allowed to burn any fires in your house on Shabbos, and that is not the halacha by Yom Tov. By Yom Tov, you violate multiple malachos. You're only liable for one prohibition of doing malacha on Yom Tov.
That's interesting.
Yes.
So you can break multiple categories. It's just one.
That's correct.
So, how do we get that from?
Because the only reason we know that by Shabbos you're liable for each and every one is because the pasuk says, "Lo sevaru eish b'chol mosh v'osechem." It's Rabbi Yossi's, right? His perspective. "Lo sevaru eish b'chol mosh v'osechem." So tell me that each and every individual malacha is its own los aseh. So therefore, that pasuk, "Lo sevaru eish b'chol mosh v'osechem," is only prohibited on Shabbos. It's not a prohibition on Yom Tov. So Amar le Ada, Ada tehei. So he says, yeah, I think that means that's a good answer. Ada tehei. So he says, yep, that's right. That's he goes, I agree with you. It's a good answer. Good answer. That's why it's only 8. Okay. Eis Abaye. So Abaye asks the following question. Ve'ein chiluk melachos b'Yom Tov. Right? It says, are you telling me there's no difference? The malachos, you do all the malachos, you only get violated one? That's not. But a Mishnah says, hamavasho gid b'chalav. Let's say b'Yom Tov. Let's say somebody is cooking the gid hanosha in milk on Yom Tov, ve'achlo, and then you eat it. So loke chamesh, 5 prohibitions.
Because you eat that, it's not kosher.
Loke mishum ochel gid. First of all, the gid hanosha, number 1.
You can't cook a kid in the middle get milk.
Right? Veloke mishum mivasha b'Yom Tov shelo l'tzarech. Number 2, you're cooking on Yom Tov, and you can only cook on Yom Tov if it's something that you're going to eat. This is non-kosher. Therefore, it's by definition illegal cooking. Veloke mishum mivasha gid b'chalav. Third thing is you're cooking meat and milk together. That's a prohibition. Veloke mishum ochel basar b'chalav. You're eating meat and milk together. That's also a prohibition. Veloke mishum havara, and also 5th one, because of lighting the fire that you use to cook it.
So can I answer the question?
Yeah.
They're all kashrut problems. They're not Yom Tov problems, except havara actually.
Oh, so
havara, saying havara
and cooking.
Yes,
that's the question.
Right.
There you go. So 2 of these, right? So 2 of these. That's the problem. 2 of them should only be 1. That's the question. V'imisa. Now, if what you're saying is true, that all of the Yom Tovs count as 1, mishum havara lo mechayev. I shouldn't be liable for the lighting the fire because I was already liable for the cooking. So I can't be liable. So deha ichayev le mishum bishulo. I got already liable for the cooking and can't be liable for the fire. So apik havara. So you're right. The counting of the lighting the fire doesn't count. V'ayo gid hanoshel shel nevela. That happens to be that the gid hanasha that he was cooking was not slaughtered properly. Therefore, it's treif meat, right? Or treif meat. It's nevela meat. So therefore, that's the 5th one. Okay, so that's what we had to do. So now, as you said, these are all prohibitions of kashrus, not Yom Tov. Only 1 Yom Tov problem. The other 4 are all kashrus problems. Okay? Vatani Reb Chia, but didn't Reb Chia say loke shtayim al achilaso v'shalosh al bishulo? Reb Chia says, well, the 5 should be broken down like this. 2 of them are for the eating, 3 of them are for cooking.
Right.
So the cooking of it is 3 different prohibitions. Now, you just switched lighting the fire, which was a prohibition in the cooking, to eating nevela, which is a prohibition in the eating. So now you've got the wrong number, you've got the wrong breakdown. V'i isa, if what you're saying is true, shalosh al achila, so you've got 3 of the prohibitions about eating it, meat and milk. You've got the fact that it's a gid hanosha and then it's nevela. So he's that, and there only should be 2 of them.
It's like havara, like creating a fire is not a malacha, right?
Lighting a fire is a malacha.
It's not one of the 39 malachas, is it?
Yeah.
I thought it was like 39 malachas of to be able to create, and then a fire.
Lighting the fire is 1, cooking is another.
Okay. I remember. Okay, fine.
Okay, so then you'd be liable for that one. So Ella. So rather, apik havara, so you're right, we still have to take out the lighting the fire, because that one we can't use, because it's already malacha, but we need one that has to do with the cooking of it. Va'ayil atze ashera, put instead, he was cooking using firewood from an idolatrous tree. And you can't get any benefit from an idolatrous tree. That's your prohibition. Va'az haraseh mehacha, and the losaseh is the following. It says, lo yidbak biyadcha, you cannot get any benefit, cannot get any benefit from it. You're getting some benefit from it, then you are in violation. Amali Ravacha braid the Rav Ravashi. Ravacha, the son of Rava, says to Ravashi, Velilki nami mishum lo savi toeva el beisacha. Well, if you're bringing idolatry, then there's another losaseh. Add the number 6. You couldn't bring an abomination into your house. Bringing any idolatry into your house is a losaseh. So therefore, it's a problem. Ella, so rather, so that's not the answer. Rather, what are we dealing with here? We used hektish wood. And that, the fifth prohibition is, you're supposed to burn their idolatry in fire. Don't do that to Hashem's things. So if the wood that's hektish, you're not allowed to destroy it. So he destroyed it. That is the 5th isser. Okay, good. Simon shnavoy shnaz. Okay.
So Havara is transferring of flame.
Havara is to burn, right? Biur is to burn.
Oh, Havara. I thought. Okay. So what's the transfer frame? How do you say it? Right.
That also is
Havara.
Right.
Havara is mutter for Yom Tov, though.
That's carrying. This is burning. Hotzah is
to go out. Is the carry.
Is the carry.
Right.
Yes,
Hotzah, right. But Havara, I thought on Yom Tov, like I'm allowed to take a flame. We do it with the candle.
That is correct. Yes.
Havara.
That's correct. So normally, Havara lighting a fire is permitted if it comes from one side to the other.
Maybe that's what the Gemara
says. Well, except that we're trying to come up with a prohibition. You just made it less problematic, not more problematic, right? We needed to come up with a 5th prohibition, not come up with something that was mutter.
Right.
You just made Havara mutter.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
We don't want that. We want something prohibited.
Right.
Okay.
Let's skip this one now.
Masketh Rav Hoshaya asked a fun question. Shovnami ha zoreya benachal eson. Well, okay, Mishnah has this list. I can come up with more ways for this plowing to be prohibited. You know another way that it can be prohibited? Let's say the plowing took place in a location where they did an Egla Arufa ceremony. And the Torah tells us that land has to lay fallow, can't plant anything there forever. So, and he's planting in it, he's plowing. So there, the prohibition is, Asher lo ya'avod bo v'lo yizra. It has to be someplace that's not worked and not planted. So Maskif lo Rav Chanina, so Rav Chanina says, I'll give you another one. Let's say somebody wrote Hashem's name on a piece of wood or something, and he's plowing and breaks it in half. And so now he's destroying Hashem's name. And the prohibition could be like this. Right? You're destroying Hashem's name. Destroy the names of idolatrous things, but not the name of Hashem. Maskef la Rabbi Yevo. So Rabbi Yevo has another one it could be. So let's say he figures out a way that he runs the plow over his tsaras, this week's parsha, right? He has his tsaras, and by running it over, he destroys the tsaras, which you're not allowed to do. The prohibition is as follows: Hishamer benega hatzaras. You have to guard your tsaras wound so the kohen can see it. Can't cut it off. So maskifla Abaye says, I'll come up with another one. Right now that we're piling these Isurim on, why did the Mishnah not leave all these out? These are good ones. What about this one? Let's say the person loosens up the choshen from the ephod. He's wearing, I guess he's a Kohen Gadol or whatever, he's wearing the choshen in the ephod, and in the plowing process, he loosens his choshen and ephod, v'amesir badi aron, and he removes the staffs of the aron, which you're not allowed to pull out. Now, I'm not quite sure how this has to do with the plowing, and the Rishonim are questioning it as well. One says that he took the staff from the plow, to be the plow, right? But then he would have had to have removed them before, which is not part of the thing. So potentially, they're not going to daven Ma'ariv tonight because there was a Shiva minyan.
Shmuley Fuse. Yeah, Shmuley Fuse.
So. So potentially is maybe, I don't know, he hooked his plow up to the aron and pulled the staffs out or something. So the prohibition is lo yasuru, you're not allowed to take them off. V'lo yizach hachoshen, you're not allowed to loosen the choshen from the ephod. Maskif l'Ravashi. So Ravashi says, I'll come up with another one. Let's say you're plowing and your plow is being used by the Asherah, the wood tree from the Avodah Zarah. The prohibition is, as we said, you're not allowed to get any benefit from the Asherah. You're getting benefits. So Maskif lo Ravina. Ravina says, I come up with another one. Let's say somebody, he's cutting down fruit trees, which is also a prohibition. The prohibition is as follows: you're supposed to eat from them. You're not supposed to cut them down. Amar Zeira the Rabbi, Rabbi Mani. So Zeira said to Rabbi Mani, I'll give you another one. Let's say the person says, I swear that I won't do any plowing on Yom Tov. Right? And he's plowing now on Yom Tov. So he says, Hasam lo kochal shvua, mushba v'yom marsina. That will work. Because you're promising something it's already a prohibition in the Torah that's already from Harsina. You can't do that. So he says, Amar Lei, so he says back, okay, no, I'll fix it. I make the shvua that I will never plow, whether it's Yom Tov or on Chol. Now that he's mosif something permissible, the shvua is chal, and it includes also if he does it on Yom Tov. Demigo dechala le shvua bechol, since the shvua works on the weekdays, chala nami b'Yom Tov, now it also falls onto the Yom Tov, and I'm in violation of that too. Midi de'isi b'she'ela lo katani. So he says something that you can if it's a shvua, we don't want it put, because a shvua you can get annulled by going to a chacham and have it removed. So that may be why we didn't want to include that one. Velo, but no, what are you talking about? Varei hektish b'bechor. What about hektish? We said that the bechor, v'harei hektish. You said the animal was hektish. So if the animal was hektish, so that was declared hektish by a person promising it, he can get it annulled by a chacham. The answer is no. B'bechor. This is hektish because it was a firstborn animal. That's why it was kodesh. Therefore, it wasn't done by a declaration. Okay, v'harei nazir. What about a nazir? A nazir also is a shvua. A person promises to be a nazir, so you can get that annulled. So the answer is benazir shimshon. This is a nazir shimshon. Nazir shimshon is a nazir where Hashem came to Shimshon's father and said, Shimshon's a nazir, and he had no choice. It wasn't an oath. So therefore, there's no annulling that one. So nazir shimshon bar itmuye lemesim. He says who? He says, but the problem is that nazir shimshon has no problem of coming in contact with the dead. So then, why is it that the Mishnah lists that as a problem? Elahaitana iser kolel leslei. Rather, the problem with the issue of the oath is that this Tana doesn't have the rule that once you add on an oath to part of it, it applies to other things as well. Meaning that we wanted to know how was he able to make himself have a shvua, a prohibition on the plowing on Yom Tov, which was already usher. We said because he added to the prohibition by saying I'm also not allowed to plow on a weekday, and this Tana says that doesn't help you. Once you can swear not to plow on a weekday, but you can never have a part of your oath to not plow on Yom Tov because that already is prohibited.
Right.
Okay. Amar of Hoshaya. Rabbi Hoshaya says, Hamarvia shur psule hamukdoshim lokeshnayim. Let's say somebody mates. So the bottom line is, there could be many other isurim. They came up with a lot of good ones. They didn't answer any of these questions. There are a lot of other good isurim. Let's say somebody has an ox that was sanctified as base of mikdash, got a blemish. So now it can't be used. So it becomes redeemed. Now, this ox has a unique status in that there's no prohibition against slaughtering it and eating it for lunch, but you're not allowed to use it for work. You have to treat it certain levels of respect, right? There are still some prohibitions on this ox, so it has kind of a mixed quality to it. So now, if somebody uses this animal to mate, to create a new to mate with other animals, so then your lokish naim, it's a two prohibitions, because you are in violation of kil'ayim. It is a mixture because the ox, even if you're using the ox together with a cow, one is a partially hektish animal and the other one is a chol animal. Right. So you can't get the two of those together. And the other prohibition is 29. kilayim, and the other one is because you're doing work with the previously sanctified animals. We said you can't do work with it. So now the animal, even if you're mating, is considered work, right? You're using it to mate with other animals. Okay, so those are your two prohibitions. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak says, "Haman hig b'shur psulei hamukdashin." If somebody is leading a plow, right? He's steering it along in his field. This animal that was puzzle from a korban, so loka, he gets malchus sharei guf echad hu v'as'o hakasav kishnei gufim. So because he gets lashes because of kilayim, because despite the fact it's only one animal. This animal has two different qualities to it. So if he goes to use it as a plow, as a plow, he's considered to be plowing with two different species, and he gets malchus just by using the one animal as two different species.
Wow.
Right, exactly. Wow. Okay.
Considered line.
Okay. Says the next Mishnah. Kama malkin. Also, how many lashes do you get? Arba'im chasra achas. You get 40 minus 1. Shnemar's pasuk says, b'mispar arba'im, to the number which leads you to 40. Right? The number that leads you to 40 is 39. Minayin shu samach l'arba'im. How do you know it's the one that's close to 40? Rabbi Yehuda says, arba'im. Minyan shehu samach l'arba'im, the number that gets you close to 40. Rabbi Yehuda says, arba'im shlemos, 40 full lashes. V'heichan hu lokas hayasera. So where do you get the last lash? We're going to see that you're going to get the lashes in groups of 3, and one goes around the front, one goes on the back, one this side, one goes on the back on this side. Where do you get the last one? So the answer is bank seifav. The last one goes between his shoulder blades. In Omdin also, Makkos reuyos lihishtalish. You have to do an evaluation and see how many lashes he's able to take. Amdu lekabel arboim. Let's say they evaluated and he can take 40. Veloka miktas, and he gets lashed some of those 40. Chaf beis amud beis ve'amdu she'ein yachol lekabel arboim potter. Then they do another, right? He started to get lashes, and then they realize he can't take all of it. So then they stop. Then he's putter. He doesn't have to get you don't have to finish up tomorrow, right? He's done. Because the requirement is that he gets debased. He gets lowered. And once he started the malchus, then he's lowered, he's debased, and that's enough. Amdu l'kabel shmona esrei. Let's say they evaluate, he can take 18. Umishalaka amdu sheyachahu l'kabel arbaim, and then they see this guy's stronger than we thought. He can really take 40. Putter. That's okay. The first evaluation was considered an evaluation, and he only gets the 18. Says the Gemara, my taima. What is the reason why he gets only 39? Iksiv arbayim, if it said 40, b'mispar hava, b'mispar. If it said arbayim b'mispar, if it had said 40 is the number, hava amina arbayim b'minyana, I would have thought that it means the number 40. Hashid iksiv b'mispar arbayim, by writing it, and the number that goes to 40 is minyan shu sokem as arbayim. It's the number that comes right before 40. Amar Rava says, Ma kama tipshoi shar inshi. Look how foolish people are. Dekaimi makmi sefer Torah v'lo kaimi makme gava rabba. People stand up when the sefer Torah is moving, but they don't stand up for a Talmud Chacham. Because di'ilu b'sefer Torah ksiv arbaim. Look at the sefer Torah, it says you get 40 lashes. V'asu rabbanon batzu chad. And the Chachamim figured out a way to get you off one. So who should you have more respect for, right? The Chachamim help you out. Rabbi Yehuda says, Arba'im Shlemos. So Rabbi Yehuda says you're going to get 40 full lashes. Rabbi Yitzchak says, my time of Rabbi Yehuda. What is Rabbi Yehuda's logic? Tichsiv, the pasuk says, Maha Makkos ha'ela bein yodech. It's interesting psukim in pasuk in Zechariah that apparently at the end of days, people are going to be very embarrassed of the fact that they were on the wrong side and that they were being Nevi'ei Sheker and saying all kinds of false prophecies. And so here's this guy, and he's going to have marks on his back. And people are going to ask him, and he's going to say, I had nothing, I don't know what you're talking about, I was a good guy the whole time. And you say to them, well, how come you have lashes on you? Somebody must have thought you were a Navi Sheker along the way. And V'amar, and he's going to say, Asher Kisi Beis Mehavai. He's going to say, I got lashes from the Beis Din because they love me, and they want to make sure that I do the right things. Okay, so that's how he's going to respond to it. So therefore,
There's something off with that story.
So therefore, the point that he's making is that he got lashes and based in. If he got lashes and based in, so then how come he has the mark in the middle of his back? Says Rabbi Yehuda, the answer is because the 40th lash is in the middle of his back. That's the way he got it. For Rabbanon, so Rabbanon say, no, this was not based in that he was talking about. That means that the guy was saying, I got beat up by my teachers, and everybody knows the teachers hit you in the middle of the back, where it's not going to cause any lasting damage.
Like the ruler, for example.
That's right, that's how they hit you. Ain't omdin ella b'makos haru'uyos, so they do an evaluation to see how many lashes you can take. Laka in, lo laka lo. So it seems from the Mishnah that they started hitting him, and then they realized he couldn't take it, so then you can stop and you don't have to finish. What if they gave him an evaluation and they thought he could take 18, and then they thought he could take 40, and then they're about to start, and they're like, this guy can't take 40. And they do a new evaluation, but he hasn't done any yet. So then that wouldn't work, right? We wouldn't reduce the number. Uraminu. We have a contradiction. Amdu lekabo arboim. Let's say this Brisa says. Let's say they measured that he could take 40. Then they determined that he can't take 40. So potter. So he's exempt. So that sounds like he's fully exempt, even though they didn't start giving him any of the lashes. Contradicts our Mishnah. Amdul lekabel shmonesri. What are the other way? Let's say they evaluated that he could take 18. And then they realized he could take 40. Potter, he's exempt from the additional ones. So Rav Sheshes lo kash. It's not a contradiction. Hadamdu liyome hadamduhu lemachar uliyome uchra. One is if they evaluated him on the same day, meaning our Mishnah is saying that he was getting lashes, and then they realized that he can't take it, and so now he's getting lashes. So the first this is if they evaluate him on the same day. So then, if they haven't started lashing him yet, so then you have to realize that the first evaluation was invalid, and so now you need to do a full new evaluation. He's not exempt, you had an invalid evaluation. Right. So that's not going to work, right? If they started, then the first evaluation could have been fine. The guy got weaker or got stronger, and so now the situation changed. Right. So however, if it's going to be an evaluation on 2 separate days, so they could have evaluated him one day and thought that he could take a certain amount of lashes, and then by the time they brought him in the second day in order to be actually given the lashes, then he could be in a different state. And he might not be as strong as he was, or he might be stronger than he was. So therefore the evaluation was valid, so therefore he's not going, we're gonna follow the new evaluation, and we are, how did it work? Hang on a second, maybe this was gonna confuse me. This was that they evaluated him. They evaluated Shamdul Sheyachol Kozad Machar. So then, when they came to give him the lashes at that time, so they gave him a second evaluation, and they saw that he changed. So therefore, we come to the conclusion that the first evaluation was fine. It wasn't a bad evaluation. It was just that he was in a different state. Now he's weaker or he's stronger. So therefore, if they evaluated him first for 40 and then they changed and they decided that he can't take that, so then he's exempt. Why? Because for some reason, and this I say it doesn't make sense, because he actually brings down Yud Ches, he says that from the Minchas Chinuch, the Minchas says, I don't understand this, but the Minchas Chinuch says, because the fact that he was evaluated at 40 and then it turns out he can't take any is an indication that he's already been embarrassed. So there's no point in giving him new lashes anymore. So I don't know, I have my own svara. My idea is if the guy was really weak and they told him, they evaluated him, the guy himself knows there's no way I can take 40 lashes. And then the doctor comes and goes, yeah, he can take 40, he's fine. The guy's petrified. He's in a terrible situation. What am I going to do? And then he has to go home and sleep that at night. So now he's already kind of embarrassed already. So therefore now when he comes, he's already been degraded. So maybe that's my own svara. I don't know. Minchas Chinuch didn't like that because he says he doesn't understand why he's already been disgraced. Okay, now, says the next Mishnah. Avar Avera sheyesh ba shnei lavin. Let's say a person does an Avera that has 2 los ases. Amduhu, so they evaluate him. Omed echad, let's say they evaluated him. Loka upater. So let's say they evaluate him and they say, the guy can take, he's going to be able to get 42 lashes, 40, and that's his total. So then the guy gets his 42 lashes. He does not have any makeups. He doesn't have to worry about the second Avera. It's not like he has extra ones. V'im lav loke u'misperape v'choser v'loke. But if he was only evaluated and they said, you know what, this guy could take 18 lashes. So that'll be for the first Avera. So they give him the 18 lashes. They wait till he heals, and then they come back and give him the other set of lashes. Okay.
So that's what happens when you have multiple crimes.
That's correct.
You give them that space.
According to, depends, right? Depends on how they evaluated him.
Right. So
that's all depends on how they evaluated him. We're going to see that it depends on how many they evaluated him to be able to take.
Right. If he could take 70, they'll give him 2 punishments.
That's correct as well. Yes, right. So now says in Marvatanya, the Brisa says Enom din omed echad l'shnei lavin. We don't do one evaluation for two sets. So which is it? Do you do it or not? So Rav Sheshes lo kash, it's not a contradiction. Hadam du la'arboim v'chado. Let's say they evaluate the guy and they say this guy's maximum that he can take is 41. Okay. Well, then you're going to reduce him. He's going to get 39. Once he's going to get 39, that's only going to cover the one Avera. So then he's got to heal and then come back and get the other one. But let's say they evaluate him and they say he can take 42.
Right, they give him 42.
Now they give him 42, so then that counts for for both sets. Because he's already into the next set.
Right, so
he doesn't have to come back.
More than
he's got to get over 30.
Right.
He's got to get to 42.
Right.
They evaluate him at 41, and then it rolls back to 39, and then he's got to get healed and come back.
Interesting.
Says the next Mishnah. Ketzad Malkinoso. What is the Malkus process? Kofes shtei yadav al ha'omud. They tie his hands to a post. They had a low post that was like 2 amos high, and they would tie his hands to the post that he would have to bend over a little bit. Halach vehalach, one on each side. V'chazan ha'knesses, the appointed person from the court, would oches bibegadav. He would grab and pull away his garments. Im nikru'u, if they tear, they tear. Im niframu, if they break away at the seam, they break away at the seam. There's no obligation to tear the clothing itself, but you need to have bare skin. Achu megala es libo.
Strip him naked, basically.
No, just top, right? Take his shirt off. Va'evan nisuna me'acharov. Then they put a rock behind the guy. Chazan HaKnesses omed alav. The chazan of the Knesset stands on the rock, right? He gives himself, good leverage. He has to stand from above the guy. Uritzua biyodo, and he's got the whip in his hand. Shel egel kefula. It was made of echad l'shnaim u'shnaim l'arba. It was made of a calf, right? And they would take it and fold it over and then fold it over again. So imagine, say like this, right? They would take it and fold it over, so now it's 2, and then fold it over again so that it's 4.
To make it more painful.
I guess, right? I don't know if it's making it more painful or but that's how it was done. It was folded up. Then they would take 2 donkey hides or strips of donkey, and they would sew it in. It would go in and out between the pieces in order to be able to add that to it, as we'll see why. Yada tefach, the handle was 1 handbreadth width, so that it could be held. Urverachva tefach, and the width of it was 1 tefach. The width of the whip was 1 tefach. The rosho magas al pi kreso. The tip of the whip would have to be able to go around to his stomach. Different interpretations of how that works. We're going to say, let's say, for example, he's whipping around from behind. It has to reach all the way around the person so that it reaches to his front. Umake oso, and then when he gives him lashes, shlish milafanov u'shtei yados mila acharav. 1/3 of them in front of him, and 2/3 on his back. Right, so it's like, according to the Rambam, lashes of 1 goes around to his chest, and then 1 on one side of his shoulder and 1 on the other shoulder. Okay, so ve'eno make oso lo omed velo yoshev elamuta. The guy who's getting lashes isn't standing and he's not sitting. He's bent over. Shnamar, the pasuk says, "V'hipilu hashofet." The judge casts him down. V'makeh, the one who's hitting him, makeh biyadu achas, uses 1 hand. He doesn't use 2 hands. He uses 1 hand to hit him. Bechol kocho, with all of his strength. Right? He's not supposed to do it lightly. Right? Do it with all your strength. V'akore. Then there was a guy who was reading psukim the whole time. And he would be his korei. Imlo tishmor lasos. If you don't, this is what happens if you don't guard the mitzvos. V'haflei Hashem es makoscha. Hashem is going to give you wondrous wounds. The es Makkos, etc. Then he would repeat the pasuk again. Ushmartem es divrei habris hazos, and so you're supposed to guard the words of this covenant. V'chosem, and then he would finish off with v'chu rachum v'chapervon, that he is merciful and he forgives averos. V'chozer l'tchilas hamikra. Then he would go back to the beginning again. V'im meis. Now, if the guy dies during the Makkos, tachas yado, because the guy is hitting him, so pater. The guy who is giving the lashes, he's exempt, because he was doing what he was supposed to do. Hosif lo od ritua achas, if the guy adds, he gives 1 extra, umeis, and the guy dies, hareza gola al yodo, then he has to go to Golas. That's considered to be shogeg, he lost count or whatever it is, and so now he's got to go to Golas. Niskalkel, bein berei bein b'mayim. If the guy loses control of his bowels, or he wets himself, so then he has debased himself and he's putter. Now he's exempt from any more malchus. Rabbi Yehuda says, Ha'ish berei, when it comes to a man, it has to be that he loses control of his bowels, Va'isha b'mayim, and a woman who wets herself, so she's more sensitive to embarrassment, so that would be sufficient for her to be completed with malchus. Malchus is done at that point. We'll do a little bit more just to be able to make sure that we are good for tomorrow. Says the Gemara, my taima, what is the reason why? Why we have this process about bending the over and why if the person wets themselves they go off. The answer is mishum nikla, because the pasuk says that you do it until the person is debased. Right. The whole point is to embarrass the person, and once he is, then it's done. Amar of Sheshes mishum Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, in the name of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Minayin l'ritzua shehi shel egel. What is the reason why the strap is supposed to be a calf? Dichsiv, as the pasuk says, arba'im yakenu. It says that you're going to hit him with 40. V'samachle. Right afterwards, it says lo sachsom shor bedisho. You're not allowed to muzzle your ox. Right, as we said, that the Makkos is written right next to this avera, and the avera of muzzling, and the muzzling is with an ox. So therefore, we know that you need to have an ox. I guess they then choose why not choose an ox rather than an egel. The answer is probably because an egel's skin is softer than an ox's, I would imagine. V'amar of Sheshes mishum Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, the name of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Minayin le yavama shenafla lifnei muka shchin shein chomsin osa. How do we know that? Let's say a woman is a yavama, and she, right, her brother, her husband dies. Now she falls to the brother to do yibum. The only problem is he is afflicted with boils. Okay, and she does not want to marry him. How do we know that she'ein chos min osa, that we don't force her to get married anyway, right? When we don't muzzle her. Dichsiv, as the pasuk says, lo sachsom shor bedisho, right? You should not muzzle an ox when it is plowing, v'samachle, and right afterwards it says ki yeshvu achim yachdav, that when two brothers together, it has the laws of Ibum written right after that. Or we learn that the prohibition of muzzling also applies to the case of Yibum. I suppose we can stop here. So, right, what we got to do is...
funny, I thought it was Thursday. I'm like, wait.